Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Today's Beyond Autistic Burnout episode is a double delight. We're diving into the world of accessibility and inclusion with Elaine Butler from Accessible Creates. Plus, stick around for our special Networking with Brian Colletto segment. I'm your host, Carol Jean Whittington, and together we're unlocking valuable insights. So stay tuned for today's show. Welcome to Beyond Autistic Burnout, the talk show designed to empower ADHD autistic professionals like you to thrive in your career, life, and beyond. I'm Carol Jean Whittington, an ADHD autistic business professional who's not just surviving, but thriving after decades in burnout. And I'm thrilled to have you here with us. Each episode, I'll be joined by inspiring guests as we dive deep into transformative strategies and insights. We'll show you how to break free from burnout, ignite sustainable energy, and embrace your authentic self. Together, we'll navigate career challenges, nurture relationships, and excel in every aspect of life. It's time to fuel your success and embark on your journey of empowerment. Let's take this incredible journey together. Get ready to be an authentic leader and unleash sustainable energy in your life. Welcome to Beyond Autistic Burnout. Let's start thriving. Well, we have a power-packed show for you today as we are breaking down barriers, unveiling the power of accessibility and inclusion with Elaine Butler and our special monthly segment, Networking with Brian Colletto. But before we get started, I always love to kind of dive in and have a conversation with everybody. So, hey, if you're joining us live, I see we got a bunch of people in the house. Drop in the comments. Let us know how you're doing today. What's sparking your joy today, friend? We want to know where you are and what's lighting you up. So there's a post that's coming out this afternoon, and I would really love for you guys to join me on this because I'm doing some lived experience gathering on the barriers to employment for ADHD autistic adults. I'm looking for many perspectives and experiences because we are a widely varied group. And often the discussion and the representations in the media are very narrow when it comes to this topic about, quote unquote, us. If you have any experience with this, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in finding and keeping a job? This can be challenges that you face externally, like transportation, work environment, also known as like the dreaded cubicles. Or it can be internal challenges that may be unique to you, like how you process information and learn a new thing. What is the one thing that would make employment for you easier or more accessible today? So be sure you take a look out on social media for the post. And this is kind of what it looks like. And it says, what has been the biggest barrier for you when it comes to employment as an ADHD autistic? And oh my goodness. So this past week was really exciting. I had a lot happening, a lot to coordinate because it was filming. And I couldn't tell anybody what it was till today. And I'm really excited to share this. But I am part of a huge project by Autism Camp Australia. And we have been filming for the Autism Masterclass. This is 28 of the most incredible autistic educators, advocates, instructors, and thought leaders in the space, including my good friend Callum Howells. If you guys know Callum, Rachel Rowe is the founder of Autism Camp Australia. And she is just, oh gosh, y'all, she has my heart so much. She put this massive project together. And Sunny Jane Wise is part of this. I can't wait for you guys to check this out. So keep an eye on social media. We have some things that are coming out that we're starting to share around the project and how you can start to, maybe get access or get involved with this, become a part of this wonderful Autism Masterclass. I can't wait. Oh, and y'all, this Saturday is our Energize and Restore Experience Day. I don't know if you were able to get your ticket because they sold out super, super fast this year. This was the first big event that we've done like this. And the gift boxes were mailed out. Well, they are starting to arrive. And this is Kelsey, my chief gifter, who put all of the wonderful goodness in this box, which includes objects and and products from ADHD and autistic owned businesses, because that is such a huge part of the passion, mission, and purpose in my life as the founder of Mind Your Autistic Brain, to support other ADHD autistic owned businesses. And guys, I went out and made sure I bought big chunks of these wonderful products to include in the boxes. And so this was such a hit. We'll be doing this again, because this is an entire day, really, really, it just an immersive, beautiful experience on the 7 different forms of rest, how you can experience those, how you can bring them in, how you automatically have this incredible gift box full of tools to help you do it. And we do it together with the accommodations and accessibility needs that meet you where you are. So, guys, this is so exciting. All the pictures and everything are starting to roll in from everybody that had their ticket. So, we'll be sharing those on social media along the way. So, I just want to give a shout out to everybody that's getting their boxes. I know how exciting that is. And don't forget, coming up in October, we have our 30-minute lunch and learn series. And I know the way that the slide looks, it looks like October 30th, but I should have made a comma or something there. It's a 30-minute lunch and learn series. And it's 2 different days. I think it's the 17th and the following week. So we've got 2 different time slots, and those are filling up. That 17th one, I think, is filling up almost all the way already. And the topic is how to increase connection, belonging, and acknowledgement in the workforce to be inclusive of disabled and neurodistinct people, with the incredible author, trainer, and Center for Grateful Leadership architect, and one of my mentors, Judy Umlis. So, guys, make sure you get signed up. This will be coming up as a specific event on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I'll have the links as well. And you can get those on the resources.mindyourautisticbrain.com/events page, and you can go sign up. Don't miss this, because if you're looking for ways to, how do I create more belonging? How do I approach and make sure that I'm not excluding people who are disabled and people who are neurodistinct? How do I start to do that in a way that is really bringing people together? Because that's really the part that makes the biggest difference, right? When we feel like we belong, we feel like we're accepted, we're seen, and we're heard, and we're understood. That is such an important part. And hey, guys, here's our special segment. I'm going to be bringing on my good buddy, Brian Colletto, and we're going to be talking and diving into networking. Brian goes out and he visits all different kinds of chambers all around him, and has such an incredible way of engaging and talking and learning. And he's got a hot tip for us this month. And we're going to celebrate some big accomplishments that Brian has had. Hey, Brian, welcome. I'm so glad you're here, my friend.
Hey Carol, how are you?
I am fantastic. So, Brian, tell me, what was the most fun this month? What was like the networking event you went to that you're like, oh man, this was really good. I had a good time. This event was good.
Um, I would say uh, the event that I went to at the home ballpark of the Somerset Patriots, which is double A affiliate of the Yankees, for those that don't know. And this was actually a rescheduled event, though, because it usually takes place in June, but had to be postponed to September because of Canada wildfires at the time. But that's always a fun event because it's free for everybody to attend, and there's lots of tables and lots of people that you can meet and catch up with as well.
Oh, I love that. That is so fun. And you've got a really hot tip for us. Like, as we're going out and we're looking for networking events as autistic professionals, I don't know about you, Brian, but like when it's just a straight networking event, it sometimes is a little harder, and it seems like it's more energy draining for me than if I actually have something to do at the same time. So, what's your hot tip around a networking insight for everybody this month?
Yeah, the hot tip is if you can find an event to do something fun like mini golf or axe throwing, then do that um, because it makes it that much more fun to be around people and you get other layers that are fun. Uh,
Oh, you
so
totally do.
that would be my tip.
I love that so much. That is such a great tip, Brian. And I love how you are so adventurous and you try everything. Like last month, you did axe throwing. This month, you had mini golf. And, that really does kind of help, just kind of like a date. I always think about, networking is kind of like the business version of dating. It's like we got to find something that we have things in common. When we have a project or an activity to do together that kind of allows us to have a common place to navigate conversation, to me, it feels so much easier and way less stressful than like, okay, we got to figure out what to talk about in this moment. I have nothing to do with my hands. I always got to have something to do with my hands. That is such a great one. Brian, I want to say a huge congratulations to you. You are part of the Autism MVP, and you've got an event coming up for Top Golf. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so uh, it's this upcoming Sunday, October 1st. It's the second annual um, Autism MVP event at Top Golf in my town in central New Jersey. And it the foundation raises money for scholarships for people that are going to college for specifically for some kind of autism education. So it's a way to give back while also um, bringing awareness and acceptance to the spectrum. And I first got connected with them last year when they were doing the first one in my hometown at Top Golf. So um, yeah, I've been unofficially a part of them ever since, and in a in in a separate outing that was just a get together with the family that started the foundation. I got some goodies, and I was showing off some of them in recent posts leading up to this. I usually don't promote events before they happen a lot, but because this one is in my town and because weather is not really too much of a factor either way, because um, the Top Golf, there's coverings, so it protects from all kinds of inclement weather.
Oh, that's
I
always
It was
helpful,
a
especially when you're
no
planning these
brainer.
big events. Thank you so
Yeah,
much and
yeah,
congratulations.
definitely.
And I love that you shared that you're a part of this. And hey, those swag bags are always fun. You can't miss out on that. And thank you so much for sharing that with us and that incredible insight and tip this month. Guys, if you're looking for some networking events and you're looking for like, how can I do this and feel comfortable, maybe not feel so drained at the end? Brian had a great tip. Go find something where you can do an activity while you're networking. Brian, we cannot wait to hear more about your adventures in networking next month. And I want to hear about your top golf score and how it goes and how much money you guys raise for scholarships because that's such a great, great program. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next month, Brian.
Thank
Oh my goodness, guys, we have got some really good conversation coming up. My guest today is Sydney Elaine Butler. They are the founder of Accessible Creates. And oh my goodness, guys, not only that, but Sydney is a part of the NeuroDrive team. And I can't tell you how much it means to me to have her here today. I am thrilled to introduce our remarkable guest, Sydney Elaine Butler. And with nearly 2 decades of experience, Sydney has devoted themselves to promoting accessibility and inclusion in the workplace. Their insights are invaluable. Guys, help me welcome the always and ever amazing Sydney Elaine Butler. Oh my gosh, Sid, hey!
The way you always introduce me makes me smile. I appreciate. I think just our friendship, and this shines through. So I appreciate it.
Okay, so my friend, you got to tell me
Yes.
about this super sexy picture we got going on here. Like, this is so lush. Oh my gosh, where are you guys? Where was this picture taken?
Yes. So I'm Guyanese. My mom's Guyanese. So I'm Guyanese. Um, And so my love of my life was also Guyanese. And so last year his mom got remarried and we went to Guyana. And then this is actually at the Guyanese Zoo. And so we took this at the zoo, and yeah, it was such a beautiful day. It was so cheap. It was only $1 USD, which was just boggling the mind. But yeah, it was just like I had to take a shot. This scenic. You see this backdrop of the picture. It was just so beautiful. And yeah, so that's me in the love of my life, Gordon.
Oh my goodness. I love that so much. And this picture was just like the minute you sent it over, because I always say, hey, send me a fun picture.
I
Like, I want the
usually include
professional.
him. I usually include him in my fun pictures because we usually have fun together.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Like, that just speaks volumes to me. I love it so much. And when I saw this picture, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to hear the story of like where this was, because it's just like so lush and the water and all the scenery. And oh my gosh, and you guys just look so happy and just like glowy together.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got quite the hot topic today,
We
don't
do.
we? We do. And
Hot.
that's one of the things, hot, baby, drop it like it's hot. You and I always love to talk about the things
Mhm.
that, make a difference that I don't think are talked about often enough. And, you do such a beautiful job of this just in the work that you do with Accessible Creates. And guys, if you have not had a chance to invite Sydney to come and present at your organization, please do, because they are incredible. Sydney has so many insights, and there's so much that we don't get a chance to talk about, or I think that is just not even on the radar for conversations that happen so much around accessibility. And we're going to dive into a good bit of those today. You and I had a conversation a couple months ago, and that's kind of what led to this
Mhm.
conversation today around ableism, like internalized ableism and how it can impact our self-care. That was one of the big parts that you and I had talked about. Oh my goodness. Have at it, my friend. What is, first of all, like,
Yeah.
what is internalized ableism? How do we even recognize it? Because I had no clue. Like, it wasn't even on my radar that like it was happening inside of me.
Yeah, so a lot of times you feel shame for being neurodivergent or having disability, but you don't know why you feel this shame. You just feel like I can't. I wish I could do what others can, or the burnout that Carol Jean also always talks about, and all these different things. And so when you start beating yourself up, for example, sometimes I need more naps because I burnt out, and so I'm like, why can't I do what I did last week, or why can't I do what other people do? And just understand, it's like okay, sometimes I'm in a flare up because of my fibromyalgia. Okay, that makes sense. I'm in a flare up. I can't do what I always do. And so just catching yourself, finding the patterns like, okay, am I being hypercritical of myself? Am I snapping at people more often that I care about and the people that love me? Am I getting the proper food that I need? Am I feeding myself? Am I, getting enough sleep? Am I taking care of my body? And, all these things play a role in internalized ableism.
So one of the things that came up for me when you and I were sort of
Mm-hmm.
having our own little friend conversation around this, because I was like, Sid, what had you talked about at this last event? And they started telling me, and I was like, ooh, you were hitting some spots. And one of those, and this was one that I really had to work through, and I didn't realize that this was part of like the internalized ableism that had gone on because I had maybe masked and camouflaged. Okay, no maybe, because I masked and camouflaged for decades. And that
Yeah.
was, I have to earn my self-care. I have to earn the
Mm-hmm.
right to do this. Like, and the days where, I too have co-occurring health conditions. And if I have a flare up, if I got something in my food that like caused massive inflammation and joint pain and
Mm-hmm.
brain fog and all this stuff, and then I would be like, I'm failing. Oh my God, I'm screwing up again. I can't do this again. And it's not just the guilt and the shame, but it's just like how mean I would be to myself and
Mm-hmm.
thinking I had to earn, like I hadn't earned the right. Like I'm lazy. I'm not doing it like I did it last week, or I should be able to do this so much faster. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is doing it faster. And all of that stuff comes in. And okay, from the burnout aspect, folks, that is a massive energy drainer.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times, you don't understand that when you're like, okay, for some reason you feel like you have to deserve self care, you have to deserve these things, but then it's like a lot of times I think because a perception of self care as a society, it's like, okay, you get a spa day, you get, you watch TV, again, the afterthought. But it's okay, let's be proactive. Let's, what do you need to do every day to feel energized, to feel like you can tackle the things. But I think, again, that the misconception that self-care has to be after, and you have, it's kind of like a reward. I think that's just ingrained in our society. And especially when, if you're neurodivergent or have a disability, it's like even more so, you're like, I don't think I deserve it because I didn't reach my goals. I didn't accomplish X, Y, and Z. But sometimes it's just hard getting out of bed. And that should be an accomplishment in itself if you want to look at it that way. But, we all have different things that we're dealing with and experiencing. And so just being really mindful, okay, creating that morning routine, creating that night routine that you do every night that allows you to feel energized and make you feel rested, ready to take on the next day, instead of being like, okay, I did X, Y, and Z today. I did 50 things on my to-do list. Now I can watch TV. And also knowing what you need. Some people can't have to watch TV, and that's how they relax. Some people are like, that's not really relaxing for them. I think you mentioned that when we were talking. You said, you're like, some activities seem relaxing to the eye in general population, but it's like, that's not what relaxing is to you. That's not what it means to you.
Totally. And I think that's such a big part of it is, for a lot of us too, if whether we've been early identified or late
Mhm.
identified, part of that journey is, the trauma aspect that comes
Yeah.
in so many different ways, and like for us, I've even seen research out there that says that, our population is even more predisposed to experiencing trauma
Mm-hmm.
in ways that other people would not even be impacted by because of the way that we're wired in our sensory system and our nervous system. And it's not it's not a deficit in the sense that it makes us, we're not broken from it,
Yeah.
but it's a deficit in the sense it's a hardship when we're trying to live externally by rules that don't include or
Mhm.
honor or acknowledge the fact that that is how we experience the world. And
Exactly. Yeah.
you talked about the important part there, and this is something I talk about. There's a difference between self-care and aftercare.
Hmm.
Aftercare is when we're scrambling to try and fix the shit we just blew up.
Hmm.
Excuse the language, but when we're trying to fix the energy deficit that we're experiencing, that's aftercare, right?
Hmm.
Because how often are we intentional, like you said, with crafting that daily practice of care? And when we're talking about self-care, guys, that is the thing that like it would just stick with me. It really like was like the burr under my saddle, as we say
Hmm.
in the South. And it was like, okay, self-care, great. I'm gonna go have a spa day. I slapped some cucumbers on my eyeballs and I'm supposed to feel
Hmm.
better. But like that didn't work for me. That wasn't that wasn't self-care, because self-care essentially is just a vehicle, right?
Hmm.
It's the mode that we get somewhere, but we got to put the right fuel in it. And the fuel is, what are my needs? And like, I think Sydney, you were talking about this so beautifully. It's like so often we don't even know what our needs are.
Yeah.
So what are some ways that maybe you have started as you've been on this journey?
Yeah.
How do we help ourselves and how do we help the people that we care about start to identify the needs that they have?
It can be very complicated. You kind of have to like take a step back out of yourself and then come back into yourself, for lack of better terminology. Like really understanding, okay, what, and like healing your inner child, healing your inner teenager, looking at, okay, what did they not get that they needed? And that's a huge place to start because, I was like, oh, as a kid, I would talk a lot. Now I get to talk a lot for a living, get to go speak at companies and speak on shows like this. But as a kid, I had a speech impediment and spoke too fast sometimes, couldn't say my R's properly. I didn't think people wanted to hear me talk, and I had so much to say. And my parents are like, if you don't can speak properly, don't speak at all, kind of thing. They didn't want to be like that, but they just encouraged me to improve my speech. Didn't go about it the right way, but it's like, okay, now I have nothing to say. I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything, and being silent. Now it's like, okay, advocating for myself, seeing what I do need, understanding that, okay, sometimes I need to talk it out. I need to talk out my feelings. I need to talk out my experiences. So I talk off Gordon's ear all the time. And he's like, yep, I'm listening, all the way to listening. And then to reaffirm that, he's like, you said these 3 points, to make sure I know that he was actually listening to me, and being like, or when things are too loud or it's too bright, that's the issue. Or some days that, and sometimes we're more sensitive than others when it's sensory. And so it's like, did I not take a shower? Do I feel dirty? Do I feel not clean? Because then I used to call them my gross attacks, but it's just sensory overload. But I feel gross. Why did I feel extra gross today? Oh, I didn't do all these care things I was supposed to do, or things that make me feel okay.
Oh my gosh. There's so much goodness in that. I mean, oh, that shadow work, that inner child
Mm-hmm.
work. It's a part of it that it's for a lot of us. I mean, like for me, I when I started 10 years ago in my late identified journey, I didn't even know that was something that was available. I didn't even think to look outside of myself for a long time. It took a couple of years. And it's so interesting because once I learned about that and I really started to look at, you know, the little version of me and to look back and just go, hey, baby girl, you were doing your best. You were really trying to be the best version of you. And oh, you got your picture.
I
Oh,
I have that on my desk because everything I do is for little sis.
oh my gosh. Yes. I think I might have to do that. You've just inspired me. I think I'm gonna add that to my desk. I'm gonna go get a little picture of myself, a younger
I think
version
that's
of
part of
me.
like the
Oh,
self
I
care
love
to do.
it.
Just, when you working at your desk, or just like, am I being too critical? Am I being, it's like, and it's like, then you like, you see the things you're doing. You look at your younger self, and you're like, they would be so proud of what I'm doing. They would be so proud of the life I'm living. So
Oh, I love that so much. So when you're at your desk and you're kind of noticing or you're feeling like the critical, that inner monologue critic
yes.
coming up, you're shifting that for yourself with
Hmm.
compassion and love and looking at your younger self going,
Hmm.
hey, I remember you and I know how far we've come.
Hmm. Exactly.
Oh, and I cannot tell you how happy I am that you have unleashed the beautiful voice that you have into the world.
Thank you so
Oh, no more silent Sydney ever, ever,
much.
never. So, Sid, what are some of the ableism in the workforce and how does it lead to problems? Like, what are some of the problems that we see? Like, how does ableism present in the workforce? How can this show up? Because, sometimes we can
Yeah.
go, this is pretty apparent. We know what that is. And sometimes it's subtle and we aren't sure. How do I
Yeah, a
know?
lot of the times it's like it's apparent when it comes to physical disabilities, but when it comes to mental disabilities, it seems to be that disconnect and the language that's being used, especially around mental health and things like that. So like, why are you acting so crazy? You're acting so bipolar. The weather's, all these different things. A lot of times people say, "Oh yeah, I've heard people say that," and it made me uncomfortable, but they didn't know why it made them uncomfortable. And they're like, "It's not racism, it's not sexism. What is it? It's ableism." And because I think there's such a lack, I'm developing a course right now about ableism in the workplace, like the history of ableism. Now I kind of want to do a self-care ableism, but like internalized ableism as well. Carrie Jean inspired me to do that. But I think just really understanding that the language that's used in these workplaces, you know, they don't, especially again, when it comes to mental health, it comes to invisible disabilities. People know when something is wrong. They know when something doesn't sound right, but they're just like, a lot of people don't know what ableism is. And so understanding that, there's so many different terms, or even the term lame, that's an ableist term, but people don't think about these things. And then a lot of people want to address it, but they don't know how to call it out because they don't know what it is. So it just perpetuates, and the cycle continues. And so I'm on this mission to talk about ableism and what it is in the workplace, so that way when you see it or you hear it, you know what it is. And I always say to companies, like, have an anonymous form, available for your employees for sexism, ableism, racism, any of these things, because sometimes people are scared they're going to lose their jobs, but they want to call it out. and that helps increase and lead to the inclusive culture. They're like, well, we don't know who said it, so we can't put a face to the name, all these things. But the company would do better, and people would feel more appreciated and valued and seen at work if they can express how they feel about these things being said.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You bring up something I think is one of the things that we talk about
Mhm.
with the Neurodrive team is, how are we helping? How are we helping to create tools? How are we helping to create conversations? How are we helping to create shift
Yeah.
perspectives? Right? That's a really big part of this because, so often it's like, well, we can't address a problem or fix something if we don't know who said it, because sometimes somehow we need to know the person, the who, to have a context. But for me, I think part of the shift, and you and I've talked about this,
Mhm.
is, well, the perspective shift here is that when we are allowing the fact that we don't need to know who
Mhm.
said it, right? Because then what are we really doing? We're looking for, like,
Mhm.
can we dismiss this? Do we have to consider this? Is this
Exactly.
person, quote unquote, a troublemaker? Are they
Are they
credible?
credible? What does that mean?
Right. And really that's not the point. And we're missing the opportunity
Mhm.
to create a culture and a community of belonging and connection and understanding when we simply aren't operating from a place of like, oh, I'm taking this personally. This means I'm doing it wrong. I'm not good enough. But it's a simple thing saying, hey, we can feel ableism. We all feel the discomfort of sexism. We feel the discomfort physically in our body. We don't, maybe not always able to like pinpoint it or put words to it to
Mhm.
describe it, but we can feel it. And when we get to a place where we can articulate it, it's really important to have a psychologically safe and a supportive
Mhm.
place without having to disclose, hey, I was a person that shared this, because that's not really helping move us forward.
Mhm.
What are some tips or suggestions that you have around how do we do this well? Because you help people
Mhm.
do it well,
Yeah.
Sid.
I think, having these conversations with your employees, having become talk about ableism, really understanding that the conversation needs to happen, and understanding that when someone says to you, or when they feel like something was ableist, but you're like, oh, but a lot of people still think that disconnect between physical disabilities and mental disabilities and visible disabilities, and understanding that a lot of people think, oh, ableism, that's for only physical disabilities. People still have that mentality. Or, so really understanding it's like, that made me feel uncomfortable. Or even just saying that, having that culture where people can say when they're uncomfortable and still have that safety net and be safe. And so really understanding it's like, and again, like you said, just mentioned, it's not a personal attack. The person and the people that are calling it to your attention wants to improve the workplace. They want you to be better as an organization, as a person. And also if you're, educating someone on ableism and what it is, understand they might not get it right away. There's so many different terms that are ableist that we don't recognize, or it's, like, oh, it's been part of the language for so long, and so it's going to take them time, but keep calling it out. And or sometimes if people catch themselves, like, "Ah," and then they realize, that's growth, that's learning. And so being patient on both sides is so important when it comes to this work, and understanding that when you call it out, you're doing the right thing by calling it out, and you should be proud of yourself for calling it out. And then also intent, I think, is a huge part of this too, because so did someone actually mean to be able to when they said it, or do they just not know better, and is it a moment to educate? What was, and even it's like, oh, this is how I received that information you just said, that the ableist term, for example, oh, you're acting so crazy, it came off ableist towards me. It's, oh no, I didn't mean it that way, la la la. Explain their reasoning behind it. And again, that dialogue and being really patient with each other. It's like, okay, he didn't mean it that way. I still felt a kind of way. It upset me. Let's talk about it.
Oh my goodness, yes, like assuming good intent or neutral intent,
Yes,
not
I think
even,
neutral intent.
neutral intent is even a better place, I think.
Yeah.
And, Jessica Michaels is so great about talking about how are we getting curious? How are we
Mhm,
creating cultures of preference
mhm.
versus, you know, what it just left my brain. It's late in the day. You
Yeah.
guys know my brain just kind of goes sometimes. It just checked out. I'll come back up. I'll come back with it. But there was something that we wanted to talk about, and you've got some really great ways to talk about how to promote accessibility at work.
Mhm,
Accessible Creates is the
mhm.
name of your business. This is what you do. This is your advocacy work. This is your passion and your purpose in the world. So how can we start to create more accessibility at work? And
I
especially, how do we
yeah.
kind of look at it with the lens of like understanding ableism? And real quick, just to kind of touch back, Sid, if you don't mind, can you just like make it super simple? Like, what is ableism? What is that for
Yeah,
people that maybe
so
haven't heard this term
mhm.
before?
So like ableism is basically the discrimination in favor of able-bodied people, and I think so. So sometimes people are like, "Oh, that has to be physical disabilities," but that's not the case. It's anyone that experiences disability differences, and so. And then what was the next? There was the other questions. I focused on that.
Then, like, okay, so
So what is it? What
accessibility
is
in the
accessibility?
workplace.
Yes, what is
Yeah.
accessibility? So what is accessibility in regards to like and tagging into ableism, understanding that everyone has different needs that need to be met, regardless if you have a disability or not. I think, yes, accessibility, people think it's synonymous with people having disabilities and being neurodivergent or being neurodistinct. But it just everyone deserves access to what they deserve and what the resources they need to be successful. So what does that look like? Do they have to have closed captions enabled? I think a lot of people think too that oh, it's only for people that are hard of hearing, or and all these things. But it's like for processing issues, you need to have closed captions or transcriptions enabled to be able to refer to, and all these different things, and just really understanding that the tools that need to be put in place for people to be successful, having a place where employees feel like they can actually speak up about what their needs are or when they're struggling. For example, right now I'm talking a lot about performance management with the clients and kind of working that world as of now. And so really understanding, looking at the performance management and the performance improvement plan. Okay, was the performance, why would they had a high performance, now it's a low performance? Okay, were they struggling at home? Were there other issues pertaining to it? And, visible disabilities and mental health conditions and other conditions that can vary in flare ups. Were they in a flare up that led to this? Have a plan that includes these things. It's like, okay, sometimes they might be in a depressive episode. They might be in a flare up from fibromyalgia, POTS, all these different things. What is the reason behind it? Don't just be, oh, they were high performer, now they're a low performer, fired. What is the plan you took? And I think a lot of times there's performance management plans and performance improvement plans, sorry, and employers just kind of do it by themselves, but it should really be cohesive with the employee, having them be like, okay, this is what I can work towards. This is the goal. This is, having multiple goals along the way, not just the big overlying goal, especially for neurodivergent employees. I think breaking it down to smaller goals, manageable goals, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever pertains to the specific job they're doing and makes more sense to help them improve the performance.
That's such a big conversation. And I think,
It is.
it really is, but it's like I just had light bulbs going off all over as I was hearing you because I was
Mhm,
applying this to, so many different situations I've been in over the years as an employee, but then also as a manager and a leader. These are things that, even from that standpoint, until we know, we don't know. We have these
mhm,
blind spots. We operate from our perspective, and it's
mhm.
not right, it's not wrong, it's just what it is for you. But I
Yep.
think when we're crafting, especially these performance metrics or these
Mhm,
KPIs, key performance indicators, as a company, as a team, and as we're working on an individual level as well as a collective level, we have to start with the fact that we are all human and we are not robots.
mhm.
We are not
Yeah.
AI. We do not, hit at a solid 10 out of 10 every
Mhm.
day, all day long. That is not how we are built.
And it's not
And
sustainable.
And it's not sustainable. That is why we have 88% of people, 77% to 87% of people in burnout right now,
Mm-hmm.
globally, no matter your neurotype, folks. And it's, what are our expectations? Are they accurate? Are they realistic? Are they sustainable? And I think as
Mm-hmm.
companies and as leaders and as individuals, we have to look at, and this is one of the things I talk about in my book, Unleashing Sustainable Energy, sustainable. What's sustainable? And we also have to look at it with, and I think you brought up such a beautiful point around this, is we have to make allowances for the fact that we have disabled people in the world. We have, you don't have to go out and hire disabled people. I'll guarantee you, just like neurodistinct folks, we're already there. And most of us have, co-occurring conditions. So we
Mm-hmm.
have both unseen, different wiring, but
Yeah.
that's also our bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we hire people because they have amazing strengths. They have incredible skills. They have wonderful talent. And then we're treating them like a tissue that we're going to use and throw away the minute it's not a 10 out of 10 productive in our book. And we're missing out on the incredible things that we all bring to the table in a variety of things. And when we create more accessible workspaces, like you're talking about doing, like simply start from the very beginning as we're laying out these metrics. How are we actually allowing for humanity and
Mm-hmm.
humanness to enter into that?
Yeah, I like what you said about you don't know what you don't until you know it. And I think that, that's kind of, I think if you had to take one thing away, I think that should be what you take away, because, and the ableism, from the internalized ableism to in the workplace, you don't know what you need until you're there, and a lot of times companies, like even if you worked a similar job in another company, this company is different. It's always gonna be different. Even if it's similar industry, same, it's always gonna be different. The circumstances of your life change. And so really being mindful and having that room. I don't want to use the term human error, because it's like, it implies that it's bad, but just room for humanity and room to understand that we're all human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to grow. We're going to learn. We're going to evolve. We're not going to be 100 all the time, and just being really transparent. It's like, okay, did I get close enough to the 10 out of 10, and understanding, okay, what supports do I need to get as close to a 10 as I need to? What supports do I need from my coworkers? What supports do I need from my managers? What things do I need in place to be able to do so? What do I need to do internally for myself to do that? Doing that check-in with yourself. Or how do you feel that went? Could it be better? And I think a lot of times people just check in with themselves after they have a really bad day at work or a really crappy day. They're like, oh, I didn't do so good today. It's because I woke up late, all these X reasons, but also checking with yourself when you had a really good day. What led to that good day? Did you feel more supported by your coworkers, by your manager? Did you have, did you get the resource or that tool you needed to be successful finally? Like I'm working right now on a group project, and I was doing focus groups, and she finally got the tool she needed to be able to do her job effectively, because she has dyslexia, and she got this tool. I can't remember what it's called right now, unfortunately. But she's like, now I felt like I could do my job better. And all these different things. It's like, okay, do I have the tools I need? What do I get? And how do I go from there?
And I love that we're approaching this too, because this was something that you wanted to talk about. And I loved this because the minute I saw it, I'm like, oh, yes. How do we provide accommodations and supports for ourselves? Because, sometimes that's where it has to begin. And I think we usually, like, the default or the thought is, I've got to go externally to meet the need that I have. And sometimes, like, I have alexithymia. That's kind of hard for me. Like, I know I need something, but I don't know what it is. I haven't gotten the clarity on it. But the contrast or the action, whether it, goes the way I expect it to, or if it doesn't go the way I expect it to, I'm gathering data that gives me more
Yeah.
clarity. And what I found was, externally, I can go to, like, a trusted partner or friend that I can talk it out with, and I can kind of describe what's going on. And I love that you put this reframe on it to, like, say, hey, check yourself where you wreck yourself. If you're looking at every crap day that you have, you're missing out on the data from the really good days that are going to give you more good days.
Yes. I, th-
right?
mhm. I think, understanding, I think a lot of, like you said, like accommodation seems like it has to be external, but, we're figuring out ourselves. We're learning, we're growing, we're living, breathing things, and so being like, oh, like I had to be completely I had a nap before this. I had a 30-minute nap. I needed it. So I was like, and be like, I need it, and understand, okay, it's like, okay, do I need that nap? Is it necessary? I'm like, to continue my day, I do need that nap, and checking in with yourself and really understanding that, you know, and like for things, try and error is a good way to go because, sometimes people are like, oh, that's wasting time. You're not collecting that much data, but you see what works, you see what doesn't work. It's like if it didn't work, people are like, oh, but it didn't work. So what was the point? You now know it didn't work, or you have it, for sometimes it can come back and you're like, oh, could that work this time? Because, again, we're constantly evolving, we're constantly changing. And so, also accommodating for yourself, like kind of how to talk about, how much food do you need in a day? How much fuel do you need? What kind of food do you need? But because everyone's body is different, right? So what food you need to eat is different than the food I need to eat to feel energized. Drink lots of water. But like seriously, like really understanding that, and then when you start learning what you need for yourself, you can start advocating that when you talk to other people. It's like, well, like Gordon is always like, well, what do you need? I'm like, I don't know. And then he's like, well, let's figure it out together, or you can figure it out and then let me know. And working alongside people to really figure out what they need. Or like a lot of times now in the workplace and the companies are going to, it's like, oh, we now have a lot of employees, they're in the process of being diagnosed and we don't know how to support them. Work alongside them to figure out what they need. They're learning just as much as you are. This is new to them as well. It's like, okay, well, we had another employee that had this, but does this work for you? Let's try this tool out. Oh, that didn't work for you. That's okay. I think right now a lot of companies, they're so stuck in like, if one employee, when to say one employee needed an accommodation, that all employees with disability need an accommodation. And that could be a good starting point, to figure out, okay, yes, that works for that person. Awesome, great if it does. But don't get frustrated and don't be like, oh, they're faking or they're lying or it doesn't work for them. Everyone is different. We have different lived experiences.
So, Sydney, what has come up? Because this is a conversation that I've had recently, and I think it's really important to kind of talk about this because we have spiky profiles, we have with co occurring health conditions, as
Mhm.
part of, being neurodistinct, there's also those invisible things around our physical health that can impact us. So, a lot of times you'll have employers, and I've heard this, but to be
Mhm.
said before, it's like, well, why do you need that accommodation? Because it seems like you're just trying to get attention or you just want,
Mhm.
extra stuff because you did that totally fine the last couple times we did it. And this time you're like it was a complete disaster and being
Yeah.
like, what's going on? And then
Yeah. That
what do we
that
do with
reminds
that kind of
yeah,
conversation and
I
understanding?
I used to when I was in school, I worked in a recreational setting. And so I used to also help kids, teens, and adults with disabilities. And part of that was doing changes. And when I first started, I could do it no problem, all these things. But I started getting knee and leg issues. And so I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it today. And then literally the week before I could do it, this week, I'm like, my leg's not feeling well. It's like, I'm in a flare up with my leg. And people are like, oh, you're just faking. And literally rumors would spread about me, about my leg and all these things. And I'm just as we're literally working with people with disabilities in our programs. And I'm just like, I'm not faking. You can't, just because you can't see the pain doesn't mean the pain's not there. And I want to keep myself safe. I want to keep my participants safe. I want to keep my coworkers safe. And just really having these conversations of, and I remember there's also one change that it's supposed to be a two-person lift because most lifts are supposed to be two persons. But like, oh, she's tiny, we can just do one person lift. And so the person would do it themselves. I'm like, that's not safe. I would always say it's not safe. And I was like, I want someone to do it. And she's like, oh, well, you do it. I was like, well, my leg's in a flare up. I can't do it. And she's like, well, I'll just do it this time. But you better be able to do it next time. And I was like, I took it to the higher supervisor because I'm like, this is not safe. This is not sustainable. This is not safe for anyone. It's not safe for the participant. It's not safe for me. It's not safe for the coworker doing this. They're gonna, if they put that private strain, it's gonna strain their back. And just really understanding it's like sometimes you have to make that change overall and be like, okay, this is not right. This is not safe. And I think it boils down to safety. Can you do your job safely? In that moment, you cannot do, it's a yes, I could do, last time I could do it with no problem because I could do it safely. I felt I could do it safe. I felt like I would be safe and the equipment and the area and my coworkers around me and things would be safe when I did it. This time, I'm in a flare up. I'm dealing with something. I can't do it as safely as I could.
That's such a great point to kind of use as sort of your benchmark is, can I perform my job and my duty safely?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, guys, we also got to take that one home with us. I really do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how often are we doing stuff that we should not be doing, pushing ourselves to like do the stuff that we need, that we quote unquote need to do at home or with our family and that kind of stuff, but we're like doing a body lift on our own when we need somebody there with us.
Mm-hmm.
I think like, am I
Well,
safely
lifting
also
the big chair
doing
to redecorate.
right, exactly. So, are we also looking at not just how can I
Mm-hmm.
perform my job safely at work, but how am I also performing my job safely at home, the
Mm-hmm.
things that I'm doing? And I saw something recently because, I'm always looking at relationship and connection stuff because I think it translates across wherever we are. And it was changing the conversation, especially at home around household duties, to when you ask someone, you're not asking for them to help you. You're asking for them to participate in a communal benefit project.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a, you're the wife or, you're
Mm-hmm.
the person that's at home. So this is your job and I'll come help you do it. No, 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 no. We all wear clothes. We all use the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think we also kind of got to think about that as it translates to the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
We're all working together for a common goal. How are we all safely
Mm-hmm.
working and supporting one another in this?
Mm-hmm. How are we ultimately all creating that safe environment for us all to thrive?
Absolutely. So, Sid, what is like your big insight, takeaway, or something really key to your heart that you want someone to understand around ableism and around accessibility at work today?
I think when you feel it in your gut, and you're like, it's not racism, it's not sexism, it's probably ableism, and understand that mental ableism is very real, it's very prevalent, and the language that's being used sometimes, you know, then you feel in your gut when language is being used, and you're like, that's not right, and so just trust your gut, you know, speak up for what you think you need, and hopefully you can do it in a safe manner because it goes all back to that safety, and understanding that if a company isn't willing to hear you out and hear what you have to say, it's like, is it really worth it? Like, I know, like, it's so hard in the market right now, but really understanding it's like, okay, do these actually align with my values? Do they align with what I want for myself and for my future?
Oh my goodness. Is it in alignment? This is one of the questions that we ask in the
Mm-hmm.
unveiling method. Is it in alignment with me? Oh, so beautiful. Thank you so much, Sydney. Gratitude flows as we come to the end of another incredible episode of Beyond Autistic Burnout. Thank you for being part of this empowering journey. I'm Carol Jean Whittington, and I'm inspired by your commitment to growth and resilience. Keep applying these insights to your life, and remember, we're here every step of the way together. Share this podcast with others who could use a boost of empowerment, and let's create a ripple effect of positive change. Until next time, take care, stay energized, and keep thriving. Sydney, where can people reach out to connect with you to have you come in and speak at their company?
Yeah, so you can connect with me at LinkedIn. It's Sydney Elaine Butler. And then just send me a message saying, saw you at the Beyond Autistic Burnout podcast or wherever you saw it. And yeah, just keep in touch.
Fantastic. I'm going to have Brian come back on stage. Hey, Brian, what is something that you'd like to tell everybody today as they're going into their new month and entering October? What is something you'd like everybody to kind of challenge or think about as they're going out into networking world?
Um, well, the weather may be getting colder, but the opportunities are increasing, and those who keep in mind that a bunch of um, chambers have holiday parties that'll be coming up before we know it. So
Oh, wow.
that's
Oh my
a thing
gosh.
to keep in mind. And just as a certain plug, sorry for the change in outfit. I thought I was done on the show, but
You're good. I
um,
saw you backstage and I was like, oh, yay, he's here. Well, we're going to give a little tip before we move into October. Thank you so much for doing that one on the fly, my friend. Guys, take care, and we'll see you next week as we're kicking off Disability Employment Awareness Month. We've got a power packed set of guests for you, and this is all about us, including us, our voices, what we need, the accessibility, and what employment is for us. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week, guys. Bye bye.